this movement. They get caught up in the personalities, like Noble Drew Ali himself, idolize him as a person rather than paying attention to what he said. Idolize the movement or the temple itself rather than the principle or the cause, meaning that what I'm really saying is people need to understand the Moorish, divine, and national movement cause and not get caught up in the labels. The cause is the spirit, why all these other things exist, why the old Kane temple exists, why the Moorish Holy Temple of Science exists, why the Moorish Science Temple exists, why the Great Seal exists, why the order of anything relative to the Moorish movement exists. The cause, if you stay focused on the cause, the spirit, it doesn't matter where you are or what the name of the organization is. The cause is the reason Noble Drew Ali came. And if someone is fighting for that universal justice in that cause, no matter what name it is, that's the Moorish movement. If you know that, it's because you understand the spirit of contract and don't get caught up in the mysteries of words that people throw out there. What the Europeans know about us is that we basically, by being miseducated, haven't studied language enough to recognize that we talk ourselves right into holes in the name of talking ourselves out. And what we usually don't do because of selfishness, jealousy, pettiness, etc., we don't really associate with each other on a level, spiritual level, that really deals with the spirit. We keep thinking that it's a spiritual ritual in some kind of religious order that brings us to spirituality when it's actually the study of words, etymology. All right? And that everything that's done in your relationship with someone else, including our relationship with the divine order, is contractual. If nothing else, you should understand the nature, the essence of contracts, not a contract that you made of all contracts. What is a contract? That's why I asked, what is nationality? We keep doing things without having a clear understanding of what we're doing and saying. We throw words around with assumptive meanings, and usually they're wrong, having more to do with the connotative sides than the denotative sides, having more to do with layered thad as opposed to the etymon. And in divine contract,
what did you just say?
Well, that's important. All right, which means in the spirit of language and in the contract, though the sorcerers, sheiks, rabbis, etc., one of the reasons why they have those titles, what those titles really mean, is that they always remain with the beginning, meaning that, just like they say, how we know God, statements like that actually here and says, like the Bible might say, go back into the hole from which you were dug. Like Noble Drew Ali say, how are we to be redeemed? What is he doing to save us, etc. By teaching us to be ourselves. Everything means go back to the root. In other words, what do sorcerers do? What is it that sorcerers do that people, the average person, sees, hears, but don't understand? Is that they understand that words exist because of meanings. Words do not create meanings. The perception is with the masses that words create meanings. And then they just attribute meanings to words that go beyond the mother of the word, which is called etymon. Those who understand law, contracts, and that word is God, know that God actually means governing ordinance, orthology, destination, and department in both the civil and the political, linguistic realm. So rulers know that God doesn't mean what the masses have been taught it means. Those who learn contracts, who deal with law, jurisprudence, know these rules because that's one of the first things that they're taught. That's what gives them the advantage. Sorcerers know this. This is what gives them advantage. This is why what they say in the Quran, Jesus was disputing with the doctors of the law. They were doctoring of the law. But doctor of the law also means PhD. Doctors of philosophy. So the major thing with us, and particularly like say the Atom Chamber, is that these secret keys are taught to those who rule. This is what Masonry is. Law, order, and governmental principles. But that's what Islam is. You see? And so what was happening is that people keep giving this information in the level of people's beliefs without cleaning up their foundation. Because the real spirituality in communication is understanding language. Or even if you don't understand multiple languages, you understand the capacity by which you can seek out its etymology. This is what etymology is. And so if people are taught any disciplines without etymology being a part of their learning structure, they're being played. The truth is being misrepresented. This is why Noble Drew Ali say, I want you all to know the truth and the divine truth. Now, how many people would look at that sentence and recognize that he talked on two levels in that one sentence, although he said truth twice? He talked about the perceived truth on its fundamental level and on its root level. Now, a philosopher knows that that's what he said, but most people would read right past that.
That's right. Go right through it.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Now, and so when I'm really talking to you, I'm talking to you from an adept level. But assuming that most of the Moors now that are involved with us in general are adepts, even if they're not they haven't done it in the club. The club ain't teaching them anyway, because the club's been infiltrated by Hoover to undermine the Moorish movement. And it takes some people years to figure that out. Some people be in this movement for years and won't accept that truth and actually be spooked up themselves and actually countering their own self. Just because they think they're attached to Moorish Science Temple, that therefore they're saved. The same attitude that people have with the church. The whole deal. So basically what I'm saying and what I'm talking about, to make you understand, is I'm not rejecting contracts. I'm not rejecting uniform commercial codes. I'm explaining what they involved in them. I'm explaining that before anyone deals with any of those things, with nationality, with birthright, with uniform commercial codes, all of these are covenants, contracts, agreements, etc. And that the first thing that the students should learn is the essence and the nature of contracts, not getting into the subject matter, whatever it may be.
Right.
Learn the nature of contracts, because all things are measured by that which is done outside of yourself. And everything that's done outside of yourself that takes on a personality is a corporation. Whether it's registered or not is not what I'm talking about. When you're in concern with any corporate activity, you're concerned relative to obligations, quote unquote, thus or otherwise, liabilities. Is understanding very clear from the inception that parties must be clear. If parties are not clear, be careful how you walk, because you're creating liabilities to imply on someone else, but they're actually leaning back on you. So don't get confused with thinking that you can create a construct and put it out there and therefore just create a liability. Because the instrument universally on how to regain an unalienable right or any other right upon which someone else has abridged is called a suit. Failure to do that is called acquiescence or abandonment or waiver. So I put out a UCC, right, against you, having not notified you. Technically, when they put out the Uniform Commercial Codes to make a claim, surety claim, etc., but they most need to understand that that is not only a legal notice, that is technicality, a suit or a claim of something that someone else has some foreknown claim upon, even a birth certificate, all right, which is mortgaged, all right. However, did you before you made this public record or put this into the ethers or into activity, did you notify the other party? Furthermore, who is the other party? And don't give me some mask, some fiction that you can't identify, and then claim that you have an active liability on someone. Because state means multiple things, not only position of mind in spiritual realms on multiple levels, social condition, but also political conditions, and does not necessarily, without a qualified name, mean anything other than state versus you. And the actual Republicans say state versus you. And other than that, even a private entity can say the state versus you. And this often happens with a lot of suits that take place in courts, in lower courts that are not under Article 3, Section 1, 2, but they start a process by which you start agreeing with them, and then that creates the jurisdiction. Now, and then they sue you within that area of activities. The point that I'm making is, we must know clearly what nationality is, not just what it is. Why did Noble Drew nationalize us? Nationality, and remember this, and that's why you got to read the Quran, questionnaire, etc. And people don't take those literature seriously.
They don't. Not at
They
all.
need to, but they've never been taught. I take that back. In general, they've never been properly presented to the people. The people have been presented these instruments in the auspices of a reversed angle of Christian mental religion perspective, when actually they're civil documents. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even the fact that the majority of the work that Noble Drew did was under civic organization, and the Moore Science Temple of America existed only 11 months before they assassinated him. And so usually this movement is presented as a religious organization from the perspective of worship, in the perspective of the church, mosque, and synagogue, which it isn't. It's government order, is government order and law. You understand? And it's science, not religion the way people take it. It is science. It's the science of politics. It'll be the documents and recognize the power in them and start throwing them out, initiating, not understanding that these contracts are instruments. You're calling them to arms. Politics is war without blood. And so when you throw these documents out, you understand you're dealing with oppositions and obligations. You're initiating war powers without blood. That's what the documents is for. Then they immediately recognize that half of these people have no honor to the nation's sovereignty that they're using to call him to order, because he has an obligation with the Moorish nation. They busy trying to be the left-hand Wick Knuckle Moors and the golden shoelace Moors, and they're just Moors. There's just tribes and make no treaties, didn't set this government. The Moorish Empire did. And it's back to everybody want to be the chief type thing. And they keep doing this, and then the European has no obligation. They're letting them off the hook.
That's right. Because it's not one sided body.
Because it's the nation. It's the nation's sovereignty. You ain't got no club over here that you got the sovereignty over the nation. You must be just who you are.
Exactly.
You ain't gonna find no international obligation by the Wicknocky Moors of the left-hand side of the north part of New York. That's Wiebo Fetzer, and now he's got this obligation. Now the United States got a battle. It ain't happening. They laughing. And so. And if you pay attention more, this is what they're doing, because they don't want to give Noble Drew credit. Everything to try to bypass that. Noble Drew already did the job.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, meanwhile, it shows you that they don't understand law of contract. Because if they did, they would recognize that the parties to any obligation, and the obligation is only produced by contract. That's why even when you argue with them, and you say, well, they're making a claim, even if they close so-called charging you, or suing you in any manner with a ticket and everything, say, produce the contract. That created the obligation. What number is that evidence